Uh, Dear all, there seemed to be so much to talk about that I thought it'd be much better if instead of writing it, I spoke to your letter. I must apologise for the noise in the background, but Aura is teaching English in the next room to half a dozen of the boys from the Shiva, as I've told you in the past. If you'd like to listen. Never mind, there's plenty of other things. She's teaching them about zebras according to the book. First, I'm sure you'd be interested to know that we're all well, coming on very well. I got a letter from Gillian, birthday card from Gillian today, in which she looked forward to seeing me this summer. So I see that the news is out. We would like, don't remember if I can tell you how long we'd like to come for, but according to your answer, when you talked about a month, we'd like to, well, I tell you the honest truth, I'm not quite sure when we come for. Maybe there's, if you remember Raymond Kirshner, who used to be organiser in Liverpool, for B'nai Akiva, who got a degree from Manchester, went out to Israel and became a teacher, and then he opened a travel agency. So we contacted him, and it's possible to go a group flight with him. And there's all sorts of flights. There's one possibly 36 days. I don't know. We're thinking July, August, for about a month. He's got about, I don't know, there's hundreds of these different trips, different days to come out. In Israel, for traveling, you have to pay travel tax, which is quite an amount. But fortunately, I don't have to pay. Aura does, but on the other hand, she gets a 20% reduction by being a student, so which makes the pill a bit sweeter. I think I've got lots of things, but maybe I'll go look at the letters first, because then I'll see the things really should have answered. We got a letter from you today about the television, for which thank you very much. In fact, you didn't really answer the basic question, which was, is the Pi television worth the extra money? Because you haven't told me what the Ferguson telly costs. I've got a feeling that in fact the previous information that you sent out was about Pi, but I don't remember it was the same set. Anyway, I'll look that up. I think I've got the information elsewhere. About your various letters, one in January, February, March. We're delighted with you were staying with 6 weeks or more. Did I say that? How can I take so much time on holiday? I'm entitled to a month's holiday each year. That's a fortnight every 6 months. And as you'll realise, I've been here for a year and a half, which does come to about 6 weeks. In addition to this, there is an arrangement. If, for example, you work on a holiday or on Shabbat, then you get a day in lieu. So these are sort of additional holidays. So in fact, although I've taken several days holiday, I still haven't used any of my official holidays. So I've got at least a month. That's how I've got the holiday. You'd like to know about our move to Beersheba. Well, basically it's like this. Living in the car is very pleasant, but it's quite a lot of effort. We give an example. The other week, on a Friday, I gave over the car because I was on Toranut for Friday. Toranut is on duty Friday and Saturday, so that meant having to get up at about 6 o'clock to catch a lift from the next door neighbour. And he got me into Beersheba at 7:30, which means that between you and I got to work about 7:45. It's about a quarter of an hour. Well, it's a quarter of an hour just sort of hanging around till I have to start work. 8 o'clock I started work. Worked Friday through Saturday, till Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. Then I finished my being on duty, but I carry on working until noon. Then at noon I had to get a bus to the bus station, then a bus station, and from the bus station to catch a bus to the bottom of the road, and then wait for a lift to get back into the car in time to do a Malpea. By which time one's a bit tired, really. It's all a big mammoth, because if you have to do all these journeys and schlepping around without a car, all this would and may be worthwhile if it was financially profitable, but in fact it isn't, because I'm really tearing the car to pieces. I mean, in a year and a half I've done 60,000 kilometers in the car, and the whole point is that the car that I've got is irreplaceable, in as much as that any other car that I buy costs me maybe 3 times as much, because of the tax concession you only get once. Also, the place has got advantage. It's a very nice place to live in, but it's also got disadvantages because it's so far from everywhere, and to get to the shops or anything is a big problem. And really, all these things lumped together is the reason why we're thinking of moving to Beersheba. Exactly where in Beersheba depends a bit on the Jewish agency. As a new immigrant, I'm entitled, or if we were both new immigrants, we'd be entitled to a house and a loan to help buy it. But because Aura isn't a new immigrant, it makes things a bit more complicated. Assuming that we do get a house in Beersheba, the price of a reasonable house, 3-4 rooms, is about 60,000 lira. Divide by 8 to get your prices. Though the same house, if you buy it from the Jewish agency, costs about 45,000. The reason is, I think, that the Jewish agency bought these houses off the contractor before they were built, and 2 or 3 years ago. And in the meantime, the prices have rocketed up. But the Jewish agency aren't particularly interested in making a profit, and so they sell them at their cost price. So it's very important, if possible, to get a house from them. This, of course, these prices are high, they're ridiculously high, but houses in Jerusalem are very, very much higher. The same house in, say, Beit Vegan, where Judith lives, would cost at least 90,000. As you see, their prices are absolutely ridiculous. We're trying to get a house via the Jewish agency. It means a special request to a committee, the committee of the Ministry of Absorption, because Aura isn't a new immigrant. The meeting is in fact tomorrow, and we hope that they will look at the request favourably. Because if they don't, well, I don't really know, they probably won't buy a house. We'll just rent one. Anyway, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. If we do buy a house, it seems that the Jewish agency have in the Shikun Bet, which is a nice area, quite close to the hospital. But next time I write to you, I'll probably know much more about where we're moving, because we're waiting first to see whether they'll give us a house. If they'll give us a house, then we'll have to go and look at them and see which one we want, and if in fact it's going to be worthwhile buying one, which it probably will be, just to use our advantages of being a new immigrant. What else? Thank you very much indeed for sending the stethoscope. I've passed it on to the doctor concerned, who was absolutely delighted with it and asked me to thank you very much. So Natan, thanks you very much. Natan is an Israeli, born in, I think he was born in Poland, and his parents fled from the Germans to Russia, and then really, due to a silly thing, when they were in Russia, they asked our mother if she'd like to go back to Poland. Asked them, everybody, I think, would they like to go back to Poland? And she said, oh yes, oh yes. And they took that to mean, oh, they were traitors because they wanted to go back to the Germans. So they shipped them off to Siberia. A bit naive of his mum, but that meant they got to Siberia. Eventually they got back from Siberia because I think the father went in the Russian army, and then they got to Israel, and when they got to Israel, about the next day, the day that they arrived, they shipped his father off into the army, and I think they had very hard times. Anyway, since then he went to school here, and is a paratrooper in the well, he was in the army as a paratrooper, in the reserves as a paratrooper, and is doing pediatrics and has been with Dr. Moses in our department for about 2 or 3 years. His father died just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they live opposite the hospital, and they have a little girl aged about a year. Anyway, he was absolutely delighted with the stethoscope, and I've told him the rate of exchange, which at the moment is 8.446. And I will of course refund the money as soon as we get back. Or if you want, I can send you a check and get you, or rather get a transfer of money from my account to yours. Anyway, whatever you like. The other half of the letter was about the fruitcake which Mama sent off. I must thank you very much indeed. I'm looking forward to it and smacking my lips, and hope it arrives before we leave the country. But even if it has to wait for us to get back, I'm sure it'll be in excellent condition. Very pleased to hear that Reverend Siegel's sister and mother-in-law got out of Russia. There seems to be quite a few people coming out. On the radio they're always talking about another group, but never numbers, never mention numbers whatsoever. That's one of your letters. Cuddles to Dushi, who gets plenty of. We'll get to Dushi in a minute, just hold your patience. Thanks, Dad, for all the Reader's Digest books, which is, well, I'd look at them. Another letter going back as far as December. I think I've answered this letter. Yes, Dad. One thing which I don't know if you know about, or maybe it has reached you. You know the Reverend Plitnik, who came to Israel, got married. He got married to a very young grandmother. Not that I saw him, but we saw the shows. Anyway, I'll come back to that later. There was all sorts of letters from me here. Letters from Spain. But I answered that one, I'm sure.
Is nimble to be quick?
Is nimble to be quick? Yes.
Have you been hard about something?
No, to be nimble is to be very quickly, easily moving, smooth moving. Someone who is nimble.
I don't know.
Dad, what does nimble mean? It means someone who's very easily moving, quick.
Okay.
Something like that, anyway. If you don't agree with the meaning of nimble, and I'm sure Kenneth won't, then please write the correct answer and we'll tell the children. I'm reading a letter about the thief, but that's quite a long time ago, and I know I answered it. Thank you very much for the sleeping bags, which Dushi found very nice. He found that he could stand up in them when plonking around his bed like doing a sack race, so long as he didn't put his hands inside them. He put his hand inside them and then tied it up around his neck, and he got very upset because he doesn't like being tied down. And if you didn't, then he found it didn't stop him in the least from being quite as bouncing up and down as you want. I took the car, Dad, to the Ford factory, the Ford workshop, who were absolutely hopeless, and nobody else had appeared, and they said that they would, but would I wait 20 minutes while he took somebody a lift? So I must admit I haven't bothered to get the steering. On the other hand, I took the car in for a complete service, and he tickled its tappets and changed its points and did all sorts of things, and took £12 sterling off me in the thing. But in the meantime, the petrol consumption has dropped by about half, so it's probably a good thing. What else have we got? I had to get two new tyres for the car. Israeli tyres are absolutely hopeless. They hardly grip the road. And I had to... First I put them on the back two wheels, with the result that the car would sort of swing around the road like a pregnant elephant. I've swapped them over now to the front two, which means that much better, it holds the road much better, except when braking they sometimes tend to bounce, which is not very pleasant. There's not much I can do about it. I think the reason is that they're nylon tyres rather than whatever the other ones are made of in England. I'm afraid not up to British quality. What else have we got here? I got a letter from Tom, which I haven't answered yet. Have to answer it soon. What about this and that? Thank you very much, Dad, about the electric organ. The whole point about this electric organ is very simple. The chap wants to bring it in and wants to bring it in on my passport. All it simply means is that it compromises me in bringing in another electric organ if I so wanted. In other words, it will be written in my passport as if I bought it, and he will do the lot. The only thing I'll do is just lend him the passport for a day, and it'll just mean that I won't be able to bring in another electric organ unless I can think of a convincing story to tell to the customs why I should have two electric organs. Yes. I passed it on to the gentleman concerned. Yeah. Well, having talked about the letters, I wouldn't exactly say answer them, having talked about them anyway, I think, there's one more, about the Pi Telly. Listen, I think probably more sensible, if I can't find anything in the meantime, is not to ask you to buy the television. The reason is very simple. When we come to England, it's quite possible that we'll want to bring other stuff out as well. Not sure whether we will or not, but it might, for example, it might be worthwhile bringing carpet out to Israel. I tell you, this really depends. It's a bit fluid yet, but we'll see what the flat's like, and what's needed, and what prices are here and qualities are here before we come out. It might be sensible to buy a carpet in England and send it out. In that case, it's cheaper. It works out to the more you send out, it works out cheaper per unit because of the insurance and other things as well. In which case, also it might be possible to send it out with things from somebody else. We've got somebody in mind, but no names, no packages, because I haven't talked to anybody. So it doesn't really make much difference, so long as we I think, decided this summer about sending a telly out. And no, we're not really suffering very much for another month or so about not having a telly. So we've got the information here. We'll keep it here. And if Dad can find out what... you see, all this about having black bulbs in which, one of two questions. Firstly, would Geoffrey let me see this witch or send me photocopies thereof? Or, which, very excellent idea. Because are those which, the telly, the Ferguson telly, is that in fact the same one? Or is that the British one? I can hardly imagine which doing a consumer report thing on CCIR tellies for export. I may be wrong, but it doesn't seem like that. The reason why the local Geoffrey, as Geoffrey would say, said it was a mistake to buy Pi was basically it cost a very lot more and there was very little difference. Well, if there is a difference, does this difference come out in CCIR? I would be interested to know if there is a difference in price between the Ferguson telly, which, and in that case, whether it's a better buy. We're not really missing a television very much at the moment. Though I must admit, I just popped out to hear the 8 o'clock news on neighbour's television, mainly because... Oh, well, I'll tell you that story afterwards if I haven't finished the tape. Okay, news. We went for Pesach. I was rather lucky in as much as I only was on duty one day Chol Hamoed. So having Aura finished a few days before Pesach, had a very nice time looking after Dushi. Dushi is getting a big boy now, and likes crawling around the floor and standing up against everything and bashing things. And we bought him a lull, which you might have seen. I don't know if I've shown you the photograph of, which is a lull is a playpen, which is a nice one which folds up. Which is basically, it looks like a padded sort of plastic covered wooden board, which is the base, and a net or network of which are the walls, and there's a frame with legs, with 4 legs round, and padded, the top of the ring round the top is foam padded. The idea being that you can lift the base up because it's suspended on the netting. The nettings form the wall. You can lift it up and fold the 4 legs underneath, and the whole thing folds flat. This course is excellent when you want to travel. Anyway, he's a big boy and likes eating lots of things. You put him in his bed, and he stands up in his bed. He can pull himself up to standing, and he shouts his head off. He doesn't always cry, but he's got a jolly good voice. We'll let you hear him. He's gone off to sleep now. We hope he'll stay tonight, but tomorrow, before I finish the tape, we'll get him to talk into it. I'm sure he'll find it quite amusing. Anyway, for the Seder night, we went to Herzliya. So we went to Aura's house, and we took her mother, and then went to her mother's sister's, who also lives in Herzliya. I haven't been to her house. I hadn't been to her house before. Who lives near Zacharia. Remember, Zacharia's the bus driver. Lives just round the corner from him. And they had other visitors there. She's got 2 sons, and one of the sons' wife was there as well, and also they have a little girl who's just about Dusi's age, but hardly turns over, whereas Ardush was standing up and singing and yelling and was having a fine old time. The Seder night itself was very interesting because there were a lot of customs are different. The biggest problem was one of food, because the Yemenites have some different customs. They eat rice, peanuts, beans, peas, and also not nuts, things which are grains of all sorts of things, like these garinim, which I'm sure you remember, and other things as well. sesame seeds, all sorts of seeds which we don't eat. I think basically the problem with some of them is that, for example, rice, is that you might get some corn or wheat inside the rice, and so Ashkenazim don't eat them, but I think the Rabbanim probably let them because they sort of search through. They don't. No, actually, they don't eat rice, but lots of them do. Uh, Search through and sort of check every grain to make sure it's rice and not wheat. So it meant there were some things which I just didn't eat, which didn't upset anybody except Dora. Especially so since the Rav, the local Rav, said that Dora had to follow my custom. I must admit, Dora didn't like that at all, and thought and said it wasn't written in the Ketubah, and that she wasn't playing that game. Yes. Anyway, a lot of the other customs for the Seder were quite different as well. For example, having the zaroa, the wing of the chicken roasted with a roasted egg. They don't have the wing of a chicken. They have, it should be the zaroa, the thigh of an animal, because this was what they had of the sheep. Jeffrey, of course, always argued that we should eat a sheep, and it seems Moroccan Jews do, whereas Yemenites take the thigh of a cow or bits of meat, and because they say so, you shouldn't, anybody shouldn't think it is actually eating the Paschal sacrifice, and we take the wing of a chicken. So it should be, even though it's in remembrance of it, it should be clear that we're not exactly eating this Paschal sacrifice. Anyway, that was one thing which was notable. The other thing was that they put all what they're going to use as the charpas and the charosit, which they use, lettuce. Instead of having a little dish in the middle, they have it as a sort of thick border all the way around the table. So you're sitting at the table and you sort of got a sort of 9-inch round band all around the table with lettuce and what do you call this, karpas, you know, the stuff you dunk, I forget what it's called in English, all the way around. It looks like a moat, or of course that it looked like English salad, the whole table like an English salad, which wasn't far off. They don't bother cursing the goyim, and the bloke who did the Seder was getting a bit past it, and it did get a bit, I don't know, it got a bit tired, I think was the best word. People were tired as well, and the whole thing did seem a bit tired towards the end, and I was tired before I started, and finishing off the first 2 glasses of wine, I was fast asleep. So they were using grape juice to sort of make the wine more diluted, so that people could get through to the end. It was very pleasant, and the next day I had to work hard because the little shtibel, the little shul, they didn't have a Kohen, and they didn't have, except for me, they didn't have a Levi, so I had to get to Aliyah's in the morning and the same in the afternoon, and then they duchen twice, and I was popping up and down. And then there was one chap who was also actually a visitor in the house who had an epileptic fit in the middle of the shul, mainly because being Pesach, of course, he didn't take his tablets. I mean, tablets may be chometz, which was a very silly thing to do, but it resulted in him having an epileptic fit all over the floor. So we just laid down on the floor and let him finish having his epileptic fit. I went back to finish the davening, and then he woke up and stood up for Kedusha. Yes, it was all good, clean fun. I think he went back to taking his tablets afterwards, because we told him it was very silly. There was no question about it. He should be taking his tablets. Can't have him fitting all over the floor. It was actually, the people sort of took it very stoically. Anyway, that was the Shabbat, which was the first day. And then afterwards, Ora went back to her mother, and I slept there overnight. And then I drove down to Beersheva early on Sunday morning, got up about 5 o'clock in the morning and drove down to Beersheba. And did I... This sounds like Dushy has just woken up. I'll just pop over and stick a dummy in his mouth and he'll go off to sleep. Just hold on a second.
Dushi is waking up. Jacket. Katatem? Ahara jacket. Hivi. Hivi. That's on page 100. Give up. The Ramud now in the shape. 104.
When Dushy wakes up, he thinks the waking up means standing up, so he stands up in bed. So all you have to do is put him down again, give him a kiss, and cover him over again. He goes off back to sleep again. It's very sweet. Now, I didn't want him to start talking because then he would go back to sleep again. Anyway, so I did a Torah note, and the day afterwards, which was then Monday, when I finished at dinner time, that was the time I took the car in for the service, and they seemed to have done it quite well. Then I came back to the village and did a quick clinic, which only 5 or 6 people came because most of them had gone away. Then drove back to Herzliya. And the next day, we went to Jerusalem to visit people. We visited the Shaws, who are have got a nice little flat. He's working very hard. He hasn't got a particularly good job. He's a foreman in a factory, which was not a particularly good wage at all. But they're very happy there. Because we didn't have it. He lives 2 or 3 doors long from Rayful. We didn't pop in to see Rayful this time. We didn't have time. It's surprising how many people live in the same area. It was like an area no bigger than Dudlow Lane to the north. Arnold Pink, and we popped in there and they made us very welcome. I must tell you about Arnold Pink. This is a flat. You go downstairs, like when you go to the Tabor's flat, how you have to go downstairs to theirs. But because it's built on a hill, when you come inside the flat, although it's the very bottom, it's almost like the cellar from the front. When to the back, it's sort of stuck out on a mountain. It's quite high up, and he's got a view right from Bertigan, right over past the Israeli Parliament, the museum, even as far as the old city you can see, and he can see the Mosque of Roma just by the western wall, and his balcony points that, and so he can, when he goes out to daven in the morning, he gets his little duchan, his little what do you call these things you daven with that they have in yeshiva. Well, I call it duchan, I think it's got another name, and he sort of aims it at the western wall for davening, which is a very Arnold Pink sort of touch. He's running his business in Liverpool from there. He gets photostats of everything sent out, and he goes over all the paperwork and does the checks from there. And it keeps him sort of busy, he said about 24 hours a week, and he's very happy, and he goes down and davens 3 times a week on the Western Wall. Anyway, we went from there, went to visit Viva Pink, who just lives a few roads away, and then we came back because the Shaws, we went to see the Shaws. We saw Amy was there and Michael, but the parents had gone to Tel Aviv to visit the Tobin family. You remember Mike Tobin? I'm sure you do, and Layla. So then we went to visit Viva, and after coming back from Viva, we popped along the next road where the Shaws live 1 road down, and further along that road, another half mile about, lives Judith and Avram. And we popped in, and Judith was there and got with Meirav and the new baby. They both look very well. Avram, as you remember, is a bus driver, and he's just been on a course to be a tourist guide, and being Pesach or Chol Hamoed, he'd gone down as far as Sharm el Sheikh, taking a bus load there. He likes his job very much, touring all over the place. The baby looks fine, and Merab is a little dolly. She's absolutely lovely. We were sort of talking Hebrew with English with Judith, and she said in Hebrew, in a very loud voice, "I don't understand English very well." And then when we carried over to here, "I don't understand English very well." She's a lovely little girl. Was chattering away very seriously. Judith told us how that once she had to go to the bank, she had to slip out to the bank for a couple of minutes, and so she asked Merab if she wanted to come. No, she was going to look after the baby. So she popped out and came back in about 2 minutes and found them both crying their eyes out. What happened? The baby had started crying, and so she didn't know what to do, so she was crying. So she said, why were we crying? She thought she'd never come back. She thought her mother would never come back. Very sweet, they looked very happy. We took Dushi along, of course. Dushi was bang, bashing around. It was great fun. What?
He's asking, can I see a nutcracker? I want to see how it looks like.
A nutcracker?
Yeah.
Why? Didn't you know it's a nut?
So I bought him a nutcracker and took him out from his pocket and he likes it.
This is one of Ora's pupils. Ora says my shoes are smelly and my socks, but that's nothing new. We bought, that was, anyway, the Shores came back and we saw them afterwards, and we came back to Herzliya the same night. It was the weather was absolutely terrible. It was pouring and pouring and pouring with rain, and in getting Jerusalem it was very, very misty, really up to English quality. You couldn't see more than 3 or 4 feet. It was quite dangerous. The next day we bought Dush a high chair, which is very good. It's made in Holland, and what it is, it's a chair with a sort of little table part of the chair, a little baby's high chair. Ora's brought in some kohlrabi.
You don't know what's that?
I think they were kohlrabi. Anyway, the chair, it's very nice, and it's on. But to make it a high chair, it's on the basis. It's like the legs, sort of legs which come together from aluminium, of a table. And the idea is that when he gets older, you can take this off, and there's a tabletop which they give you with, so it can make it into a little table and chair, normal one for him. Anyway, that he loves. He sits up and he can eat away and make a mess of everything. Of course he was. And then we brought him something else. That really is Ora's mum contributed to us. And we bought him what they call here a halichon, or a walker. And basically what it is, it's got a little seat like a bicycle saddle, and it's suspended by 3 straps by a big circle of plastic. And that, I don't know, I've never seen something like that. They probably do have it. And this is on 4 legs, and then the legs, at the bottom there's another circle of aluminium, and 5 or 6 little sets of wheels. And the idea is that he sits on the saddle with his feet down, and he can stand up, and it supports him, and then he can go toddling round, helped by this. And Dush loves it. He goes smashing. The first day he didn't know the difference of going forward and going backwards, but he soon got the idea, and he goes dashing round. He was dashing around the house, and he managed to smash a vase. Ora's mum had a vase of flowers on the floor, and he smashed them. Oh, what a lovely child! Then he smashed 4 eggs. Oh, the sweetie! He could have smashed the whole house, and she was looking in raptures at the way he was smashing the house up. Anyway, Dushi was very happy. Oh, and he was a big boy, and he liked very much toddling round the house in this thing. And he'll walk, if you hold his hands, he walks. We even bought him a pair of proper shoes, or bought him a pair of proper shoes, and he marches like a drunken soldier on parade, very proud of himself. the next the next day, I think we slept in. Anyway, in the afternoon we went to visit the Tobins. Also, Mike's father died in Australia just before. They He's in charge of the language laboratory. I think we told you about that previously
No,
in
the
Barilan.
last time we went to Yonda, then we went to the army.
We also went to we took Oris went to Rosh Ain, which is the Rosh Ain is the little place, the town outside Tel Aviv where Yonah lives, and we took them back
Really?
there. Yes, I think we took you there, didn't we? Yeah. Um, what else? And then we also went to Ora has another sister, a half sister who must be 40 or 50, as how she is, who lives lives in Tel Aviv near the sea, and we also went to visit them. Of course, we had to take Dushi with all these places because we had to.
Without them.
Nobody let us in without them. Lots of people said no point in coming in if we don't bring him. And he was eating everything, anything you give him, as long as there's enough of it. The couple who we kept a bit in contact with, who we met on the boat coming out, an American couple who with 3 children, and they told us quite bluntly that they don't want to see us again if we don't bring Dushi with. What else to tell them about? And then we spent the last 2 days of Yom Tov in Herzliya, or rather last day of Yom Tov in the Shabbat, and came back here on Sunday and back to work.
My mother started living the departure to England. She started thinking about us when we go to England. Oh, how terrible it will be not to see Joshi for 2 months, for a month and a half. Oh, so terrible. Oh, she didn't want us to take him.
What? Tell about the kids.
Which there are a few girls here who like Joshi so much they keep coming to visit him. But till now he was in the lul, he was a baby. But now when he started walking around, one of them got so frightened she screamed and asked her sister to come and help her because he suddenly came running toward her and she didn't know what to do. She's about 2.5 years old. And another one is very sweet and very clever. She's about 2 years old. 2 years old?
2 years old, yeah.
2 years old, and he came toward her and she stood shocked. She didn't know what to do, and he started pulling her buttons and taking toys from her hands, and she didn't know what to do. She didn't know if to laugh or cry. But he looked at them so like a man. Oh, I'm a girl. I have nothing to do with girls.
I don't know. He's a flirt. Or his mother kept taking him into shul, and once, and you weren't there, but he had. It was rather nice. I think it was one mincha or Mariv, and the whole shul. And Dushi was standing in the balcony, and he was looking over the top, and he saw me, and bouncing up and down, absolutely delighted. Anyway, then he was very good and very quiet, and then the whole shul went absolutely dead quiet because of saying the Midah, Shemona Esrei. Oh, he didn't like that, so he started going, gring, gring. He likes talking. You didn't hear today when he was gone to university to take an exam, and he was with the family that he stays with, and the father went out in the car, drove away in the car. So the little boy, age 2, started crying, Abba, 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 and started crying. And when the little girl, who's aged about 18 months, saw her big brother crying, she started crying. When Dushi saw her, he started screaming. He wasn't crying or anything, he just wanted to join in. And the next door neighbour said it was very funny, one started, the second, and then Dushi also wanted to be in the act. He's a real extrovert. He likes people. When it was a bit warmer, he used to sit outside outside their house, and he used to talk to everybody. He likes the kids coming and talking to him. He's a big chatterbox. Anyway,
The house, Ableton house on
He's just Daddy likes talking as well. I've been going for about an hour and a half. But listen, the thing which you've been looking forward to, I'll stop now, and that is having Dushy talk. I'll leave the tape recorder all set up. He was talking so much when I was giving him supper tonight. You see, even his daddy has.
Tell them what he eats.
Well, I give it today. He had when I came back, he had some. He had scrambled egg. He had about 1.5 scrambled eggs. Well, one scrambled egg.
It's too much, but they have.
Okay, he had a scrambled egg, and then he had some. There were fried gefilte fish and potatoes, and then when he finished that, he had some yogurt.
Did you bring the drink?
Yeah, I gave him some. He had sips of water in between, and then after that, he had some jelly. He liked jelly. It was so funny seeing with the jelly. he sort of put his mouth went blub, and it plopped down, and he tried to pick it up. It was lovely. And he did that, and he picks it up and plonks it in his mouth again. Oh, he had a lovely time. And then what else did I give him? I think it was something else. And then he had a tomato. He likes sucking tomatoes. And then he had some more yogurt, and then I think you came home then. He ate very well. He felt he was quite pleased with himself. What else?
He stands up.
You know, I said that he stands up.
No, in the middle of the night. Suddenly just stands
Yes,
up.
when he wakes up, I just told him before when he woke up. When he wakes up, he stands up. And he goes, yeah, and you put him back to sleep again, and he goes off back to sleep again. Though sometimes he's very difficult to put to sleep. You put him down, you say, night, 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 and he lies down, and you turn your back, and boop, he's standing up. So sometimes, and he's tired, you can tell it when he's tired, he scratches his ear, he rubs his ear. And he rubs his nose on you. So you hold him in your arms, and he rubs his nose. He rubs his head from side to side and wipes his nose all over your shirt. He's very naughty, and he does not like being changed. I remember hearing this you saying that it took 2 people to dress me. Well, he's just exactly the same. He if he's being dressed, First he lets you half undo his nappy, and then he kicks and struggles and tries to make as much mess as possible. And then when you get it off, then he waits until Laura's bending over, and he kicks out his feet as hard as he can to try and kick her in the tummy. He's very naughty.
And then when I shout as well.
Yes, that's right. And then if you scream and say ow, then he goes ow, ow.
No, he said no.
He's lovely. Oh wait, I think he heard us talking. No. Uh-oh. I was just his dummy had fallen out. I don't know whether you let us have dummies, but Spock permits dummies and says that sometimes if you give them dummies they don't suck the thumb, so we let him have a dummy when he goes off to sleep. Let us sleep as well. It's it's now next morning. Dushy didn't talk very much when he was getting up. He didn't talk very much when he was getting up, so I didn't succeed in recording him. He just wanted to let us know he was about, and then as soon as you look at him, he shuts up. Anyway, he's had his breakfast now, and put him on the bed next to Aura, and he immediately tries to pull her hair and to stand up. Now come on, Dushy, say something.
No. No, you mustn't touch that.
Boop boop. Which one?
Careful, Ilke.
She bumped.
Listen to me. No. Ah. Oh. Whoa.
She likes talking. This is when he's being changed. He's pulling Laura's hair at the moment. Green.
Take Daddy's glasses. Ow! Daddy, ow! Ow! You're pulling my hair.
Mummy.
No. Let's see.
What?
Push. Ow! Where is Sushi? Where is Sushi? Where is Sushi? No. Oh, you're naughty. I can't with him.
Cope with him.
Cope with him.
While we change him, he just rolled over and he's going like a Gigi. Bumpity.
Sushi, come back. His hand.
What are you doing? He's now standing up. No, you must get changed, Bush. And stop poking holes in the wall.
I'm sorry, but you have to be changed. No!
When you put cream on his bottom, he holds his legs up. Go on, hold your legs. Hold your legs up, go on. He knows how to hold his legs, that's right. Who holds his legs up? He knows he has to hold his legs up so he can put cream on his bottom, so he won't have sore bottom, don't you, Dush? When Ora used to say aye, so he liked that. He used to say aye as well.
Ow! Wait.
No, stay where you are, Push.
Here, look at this. Boop, 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 boop. No! No!
He wants to turn over in the middle.
No! I can't. No. I said no.
Again tries to roll over. He's on his back and always changing his nappy. But he tries to turn over all the time. In the middle. I'm now holding his legs. So then he tries to stand up.
Night night.
Pupush!
What is it? What is it?
Bounce this. They're on the green ones are there. And on the and there's yellow ones there on the top.
He's tired.
Hmm. Boop boop. Boop boop. Yes, yeah. Say hello to Sabta and Saba. That's Grandma and Granddad. Oh, isn't that nice? They're going to bash it.
Yeah.
Let's pull it off the table, it's too close. He's grabbed hold of the microphone. You mustn't do that, Push, that's naughty. You're coming off the end of the table, yeah? What are you doing, Push? That's it. So, bye-bye then until the next letter. Do you want to say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye then. Love to Kenneth and Jeffrey and Mummy and Daddy and the cat. If there is a cat.